Hey, it's Aaron the Metal Theologian. So, the mic was really hot on the last one I did, so I tried to make it a little quieter on this one. So, like, if it doesn't sound right, bitch about it in the comments or something so I can tell, okay? I go back and check these things sometimes myself, but not always, so you never know. Anyway, today, especially since it's kind of been a while for me anyway, it's been a busy week in that, but fucking you know why, I won't even go into it. Got some new arrivals, and if I don't drone on for too long, I might sort of shout out to a couple classics. So I'm going to kind of focus on like some old funk shit, because that's what I've been really into this week. So we're going to do that, but first things first, as always here, when I have something that is. This is almost a cheat, because this is Fentiman's Shandy. And so this is sort of, you know, a semi-beer. It says traditionally brewed with beer, right? I mean, it's not beer, though. It's sort of like a near beer with like a soda in it or something like that. It's not alcoholic or anything, so my kids are allowed to drink it and shit. But I've had this a few times before, though. I love this stuff, and it's kind of a small bottle, you know. That's first of all because they just come in fucking small bottles, but also because I've been eating so much fucking sugar this week. I'm gonna fucking, I don't know, man. I was going to make a diabetes joke, but that isn't really funny. So let's just say I've been eating a lot of fucking sugar this week. And this week meaning like the full 7 days, not just like since, you know, Wednesday or something like that. I've been fucking serious. So I'm going to have a half today. So let's see how this is. Yeah, I think this stuff is awesome. I mean, if you're like a beer purist, this shit might offend you, because it's definitely beery, but it still comes off more like as a brewed soda because the sort of lemon lime flavor in there is so pronounced. So I know a lot of like the microbrewers and shit like that will have like seasonal shandies and that. I really don't know how this compares to those, because that was really never my thing. But this shit's fucking good, man. So anyway, well, I gather my thoughts. So a couple words just about kind of, you know, what funk is to me and that sort of thing. I mean, obviously funk is funk, right? But, you know, there are kind of different eras of it. And I used to listen to a lot of the shit. I actually used to listen to a ton of, like, soul music and R&B, like, went through a purge where I got rid of like 300 really good like soul records a long time ago just because of hard times and that. And that's when like all my Otis Redding records and Wilson Pickett records and my early Stevie Wonders, actually all my Stevie Wonders, but I rebought a few. But you know, a lot of that kind of shit went. And on the one hand, it was kind of a shame because, you know, obviously, you know, they're my babies and it kind of hurts to let go of them. On the other hand, I just got to a point where, you know, if you ask me if I like Otis Redding, I will say I fucking love him, you know, oh my god. But as far as how often I'm actually inclined to like go home and like put that shit on just to listen to, the answer is pretty much never, because I spent so much time listening to that stuff and assimilating it that I just don't really need to play it anymore. And even though I like it, I'm kind of past the point. And fucking, I'm so happy to be able to say this too. This is, I almost feel like I'm bragging by saying this. But I'm kind of past the point as a collector where I feel like I need to own every single little thing. It's like, I sort of have my niches, you know, I have my metal, and then I have my obscure 70s rock, and there are a few big names, and I have the fucking Sabbath, and the Purple, and the Zeppelin even, and that shit, right? But, you know, there's so much music out there, and there's so much good stuff, that the stuff I try and keep around tends to gravitate more either towards things that I'm definitely going to play a lot, or else things that aren't going to be available to me unless I have my own copies, which is another reason why I collect records a lot more than, say, books or something like that. I mean, yeah, I love records. I'm not going to talk down record collecting, but I don't need 10 Otis Redding records, because if I want to listen to Otis Redding, it's available, you know, whereas with something like, I mean, a lot of the jazz shit I'm into, the obscure metal stuff you've seen and things like that, it's just not around, you know. I mean, maybe I could sit and watch it on YouTube or something, but that's no fucking fun. So, you know, I might get a friend's house and pull out an Otis Redding and go, hey, let's listen to this, and fucking be all happy about it, because I don't have to listen to fucking, I don't know, fucking Ben Folds 5 or some horse shit like that. So anyway, as far as the funk shit goes, you know, I spend a lot of time listening to like a lot of 70s stuff. I listen to a lot of 60s stuff. I listen to a lot of 70s stuff though too, you know. And even though I used to sort of love it all, the shit that I always found myself liking the most tended to be the earlier stuff, where it was less stylized. And now I've kind of gotten to the point now where I don't really care for the later stuff very much anymore. Like Spirit by Earth, Wind and Fire, I've really got nothing bad to say about that record, except it's pretty much a fucking disco record, you know. And it's like I could sit here and like talk about its funk merits, but I still listen to it. It still sounds like it still sounds like a disco record to me, you know. It doesn't sound like Gloria Gaynor or ABBA or something like that, admittedly, but it's still of that time. You compare that to like the early Earth, Wind and Fire records, and it's not. I mean, stylized is the word I keep coming back to in my head. It's like the medium hadn't been quite so clearly defined yet, even though it was definitely coming from sort of, you know, an R&B or soul sort of background as far as like the instrumentation with the strings and the elaborate horn arrangements and things like that you'd really never hear on a rock record, or rarely anyway. It was still sort of, you could sort of hear the musicians still sort of finding their way around. How much is this going to be synth? How much are we going to emphasize the, you know, sort of the backbeat of, you know, sort of the dance rhythm versus a more sort of straight ahead rock type beat? And so, you know, consequently, some of my favorite shit, the early Funkadelic records, obviously. Later ones I've got nothing against, especially Warner records. You know, they're fine, they're okay. Parliament, they're actually in the other category for me. I mean, Clones of Dr. Funkenstein, that record actually means a lot to me personally, but I never play the fucking thing because, again, it sounds like a disco record. It sounds like an early disco record, I'll give it that, you know, 74, 75, whenever that thing came out, but it still has that, you know, it's all about sort of the dance thing going, whereas in the first couple Funkadelics, it's like, okay, we're actually more psychedelic and almost more rock than anything else going on, so consequently, these days I tend to buy my funk records, you know, quote unquote, not more, but about equally out of the jazz section as I do out of the, you know, the soul section at the store, because it just seems like it's not really that clearly defined, and even though it's kind of a pain in the ass to, okay, this Obscuro, where am I going to find it, blah, 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 this record over here in jazz looks like it might be funky, and this, but it might be just fucking people noodling, or a fusion record, worse yet, or on the other hand, this shit over here in the soul section, this might be a great funk record, but it might be like, you know, just some singer or something like that, so there's a little bit more finding a way around, but that actually sort of represents what it is that I love about the medium. So, you know, a case in point on that one actually is kind of a new band to me, even though it's a very old band. But I've kind of just discovered the early Crusaders records. And I say early Crusaders guardedly because they're early records from the time when they were the Crusaders and no longer the Jazz Crusaders. The Jazz Crusaders stuff I've heard hasn't really ripped my face off, but these first few Crusaders records I'm all over, and I just picked up this one at a local shop the other day. This is Unsung Heroes from, I think, 73. And this thing, it's pretty straight ahead as far as the rhythms, but definitely has that groove going. For a jazz record, it sounds very electric, you know, but it's not like all scintillating and shit like that. It's just, okay, we're past that whole thing about are we going to play on acoustic instruments or electric instruments. It's all electric, and this record pretty much rocks. I mean, yeah, it swings. The musicians are fucking first rate, but it's an awesome record, and I've been really enjoying it a lot. Sort of, since I just mentioned them, from the other side of the spectrum here, this is, I believe this is the first of the Columbia Earth, Wind and Fire records. Yeah, I just had to double check. Now, my heart is with those first two that came out on Warner. The very first one, The Need of Love, but this one still sounds a lot more like those and like what they were doing in the second half of the 70s. And, you know, forget about their hits in the 80s and shit like that when they were just appalling. But this is a great record. You know, it has a groove thing going, but it sounds like they're finding their way. And I absolutely love that. I'm starting out, by the way, with sort of the local pickups. I got that at a shop here in town. This is a reissue. This is on Four Men with Beards. Originals are probably incredibly rare, but this is Black Nasty, Talking to the People. And this was pretty much a blind buy. I basically bought this record. No fucking reflection. I basically bought this record on the strength of that picture. I was like, you know, that does not look like, I mean, I'm not seeing any spandex, I'm not seeing any rhinestones, I'm not seeing any matching costumes. I'm seeing some fucking people who are fucking get ready to get down. That's what they fucking do on this record, man. Good shit, very highly recommended. Apparently it was a Stax release, so that was a little bit hit and miss. They actually reproduced the Enterprise label too. And, you know, I'm a big fan of Stax, you know, like I said, especially when it comes to sort of straight soul stuff. I tend to like the southern stuff more than the northern stuff. I always have, really, so that's why, you know, Wilson Pickett, Isaac Hayes, guys like that, or what, Sam and Dave, you know. Speaking of Isaac Hayes as a songwriter. But I tend to think of it as being more sort of straight soul stuff. Not that one, man. That one fucking rocks, man. Now this next one, I'm almost embarrassed to show this one because this is actually has a special place in my heart for a long time. I guess I'll quit building fucking suspense. This was actually back in like '83 when this came out. I was one of those little kids who saw the fucking unbelievable video for Rocket on MTV. I just couldn't believe it. I saw it in the middle of the night, and I like wondered if I was dreaming or something like that, because it so blew my little, you know, young adolescent mind when I was like 10 or 11 years old or whenever it was. I was actually in Boston. I don't remember what I was doing there, but I was in Boston, and I went to the record store, and I had like 3 tapes. This was going to be my 4th one. I was like, yeah, I want to get Future Shock by Herbie Hancock, and I can't find it over here in the rock section. They're like, oh, Herbie Hancock's over in the jazz section. I was like, what? You know? Because I didn't know who the fuck Herbie Hancock was. I was just some little kid, and frankly, when it comes to jazz, forget about it with my parents, man. Unless you consider Harry Belafonte jazz. And then this is also the first record I got that only had 6 songs on it. I was like, what, isn't an album supposed to have fucking like 10 songs on it, or at least like 8, you know? Has 3 songs per side? How long are these things, you know? And this whole thing just fascinated me. It's funny because I've gotten like more and more sort of like layers and layers of appreciation for it over the years. Even though this is probably my fucking 4th copy. I don't have that tape. I got it on record. I got rid of the record. I don't want this 80s shit around. Bought it again. Went, fuck that. Got rid of it. So this is, I don't even know how many copies this I've had, but I bought it again. And guess what? I fucking love it. I mean, another one, when I was a little kid listening to this, I just thought the song Future Shock sucked. I was like, oh, they just came off that great thing. What's up with that fucking girl singing? Because I was such a fucking little kid. First of all, I didn't realize it was a guy. Second of all, I didn't realize it was a song by the great Curtis fucking Mayfield. How about that shit? Herbie Hancock's paying his dues, and me, the little punk, going, ooh, like a little fucking shit that I was. But what can I say? At least I sure know that record, like, before I was like 30 or something like that, you know. So that's it for the local pickups, though. Now here's some again, some old friends. I actually used to have all these records. I'm trying to buy them again. I'm just going to start with my favorite, although it's tough between these. This is All Day Music by War. I love War. This is kind of cool because it actually still has the poster in it. Which I'll show off. It's really just the cover, but I love shit like this, so the hell with it. Look at that. That's cool to turn up. I'm a little ashamed to say I had to send away for this. Like back when I got my first copies of these, they were all in the wild. Perfect copies, because shit like this would still turn up, you know? A trashed one would come through, which it did, and I'd just hold out for a better copy, and I'd find a better copy. Now it's like, you better get that fucking trashed one, because you may not see it again. So anyway, great record, absolutely love it. One thing that I didn't remember from this one, but so it kind of blew my mind listening to it a little bit again after all these years, was sort of the early version of Me and Baby Brother, which is just called Baby Brother on this one, which is like a straight ahead, really just like a rock version of the same song that got a lot bigger in the version off this record, I think the following year, maybe 2 years after, but I think it was the following year. There's a great record too. It definitely has some mellower parts. I mean, you can definitely hear it. This was sort of like the more mainstream type of funk stuff, but it still sounds like, it still has that sort of primitive feel to it. I love that there are so many fucking drums in this. It's like so like rhythmic and rhythm heavy, and a lot of the stuff is like that, but more than a lot of bands. So obviously Me and Baby Brother is great. Southern Part of Texas is one of my favorite songs on this one too, actually. Also sort of an album track that might be a little less known. In case anyone's wondering, you're not going to see any of the Eric Burdon records in here. I kind of like those a lot less. In fact, I think Eric Burdon was kind of a little bit of, well, never mind. Because I actually like a lot of records that Eric Burdon was on, including those first 2 War records, but I just think they pale in comparison to what the band did after that fucker was gone, so they just didn't need him. They also never made a cover as cool as this. So this is actually the first one without Eric Burdon, so prior would have been the self-titled one. Eric Burdon Declares War, it was called, was Spill the Wine. And then The Black Man's Burden, which, I don't know, was kind of a fucking condescending album title anyway. So there's a great gatefold in it. I wish I could show this off, but my old copy of this that I used to have actually came with like a special like war buck in it, which was like a little like dollar-shaped piece of cardboard that actually said it was good for like a buck off a concert ticket if you're going to see a war show. It's something I never used. I thought that was awesome. By the way, I also think it's funny that Lee Oskar has the biggest afro out of all these guys. I don't think you can see it on my camera. Speaking of my camera, I actually finally figured out how to control the focus so it doesn't blur out all the goddamn time. So fans of, I don't say some of my fans, actually not fans of me, but fans of my, because I wouldn't presume to have any, but fans of my camera might be a little bit disappointed. I apologize for that, but man, it pisses me off so much less. Anyway, that's like a few old friends right there. You know, I don't have The World as a Ghetto. I could have sworn I had kept my copy of that. I knew I'd let go of most of my war records. I thought I still had that one, but I don't know what the fuck happened to it. So I'm in the market for a copy if anyone happens to have a spare of that fucker. And I'm not a mint freak. If you have like a decent copy of it that you upgraded, let me know about the decent copy, because I'm totally interested. It's another one I heard a long time ago, but I kind of forgotten about, but I came across it, and it was cheap, so I grabbed it. Unfortunately, it was cheap because the condition's a little rough, and there's a skip on it. I should probably upgrade it. But this is War of the Gods by Billy Paul, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect. It's actually a Venezuelan dude who turned me onto this band on a consulting project I was on. Like, we were talking about, like, this kind of funk shit. I was going through a phase. I'd never heard of this. And he was like, oh, you gotta hear War of the Gods by Billy Paul. I was like, Billy Paul, who's that? Then later on, I sort of figured out, oh, that's the Me and Mrs. Jones guy. And you can kind of hear him going on that direction in this earlier record, on some of the songs. It's definitely sort of a more mellow vibe. He definitely worries a line like you wouldn't believe, like just the way he'll draw it out and sort of put the drama into it. I mean, he's like a real like soulful singer, but still with his own style and a hell of a range too, by the way. On some of the, actually what some of these songs remind me of is they actually reminded me of the songwriting on Isaac Hayes' good solo albums, which were very few, I'm sorry to say. I love Hot Buttered Soul, and I can definitely dig the Isaac Hayes movement, but talk about a guy who was an amazing singer and an amazing songwriter, for God's sake, but made a ton of shitty-ass records, man. I don't know, it's like Tina Turner, man. I love Tina Turner, but her records all suck. I don't know. They should have been great. It's like, Alan philosophized over that too much, but yeah, some of that stuff sounds like it goes in that direction. Definitely kind of has the more sort of lush string arrangements, and I don't even really know if it belongs in a funk update. The jury's kind of still out on that. Another friend of mine described it as a fusion record. I don't know if I'd call it fusion. In fact, I don't think it's a very jazzy record particularly, but it doesn't kind of have that rock thing going on. It's worth a listen, man. It's pretty good. And it definitely has some cornball shit going on. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much shit about Me and Mrs. Jones, but you can hear where that came from on that record, as sort of righteous as this record tends to be, which I thought was kind of funny. But, I don't know. It's just, sometimes that shit is cloying and irritating, and these songs I just like. I think it's as simple as that. I just like the fucking songs. Now, speaking of shit that I like, this is actually my record of the week. This is the first Commodores record, Machine Gun, from 74. No, this is not an original, alas, but it has that little cutout notch too, but not on the other side. But this record ripped my fucking face off, man. This thing is so badass. I can't believe it, man. Talk about the perfect mix. In fact, you know what this is like? This is like, it's not like Stevie Wonder at all, really. I mean, this much, okay? But what I really like about the early 70s Stevie Wonder records is that Stevie Wonders could put all these synths in there and do all this experimentation with the fucking, the keyboards and shit that he was doing without making it sound like it was too heavily laden down with just like artificiality, And this record pulls that off too, man. This is just like a different weird sound on every fucking song, but it still sounds fresh. It still sounds sincere. And it's just a fucking motherfucker, man. I don't know what to say, man. See, I run out of words sometimes. I got this one, too. Actually, I haven't played this one yet, but this is the second Commodore's record, Caught in the Act. It's supposed to be really damn good, too. So, I actually got these. Sort of the impetus for all this. Funny, I chatted a little bit with Scott Waters about Parliament in the comments of someone else's video. And then a couple days later, I talked with my record collector friend in Colombia here, and between those two conversations, it just like set me off. And I'm like fucking doing my rock thing and like my 70s groove, and I was like, oh fuck, I need to bust out some fucking funk records. I'm like, oh, where'd my copy of The World Is a Ghetto go? And oh, I need these Commodore's records. I fucking ran out and bought them. Same dude recommended this one actually, which I haven't heard yet. Has kind of a weird sleeve actually, but this is 1990 by the Temptations. And I mean, I knew the Temptations obviously, but I really know them for their 60s shit, you know, where their hits were. And I kind of tend to think of them as washed up, but I'm kind of curious about this sort of concept album they did in the early 70s called 1990. This record's actually 73, and if it really strikes me hard one way or another, I'll try to remember to report back. I don't think I've done that a single time actually. I always say that, but ask me if you really give a shit. I'm going to listen to it soon, that's for sure. And this is the last of my recent pickups, so I'm a big fan of the early Kool and the Gang. Same deal. The later Kool and the Gang, I mean, they made some fucking bad records, right? Okay, you don't go that far with it, okay? Like Spirit of the Boogie, like what's that called? Wild and Peaceful, that record, which I own, you know, Jungle Boogie. It's a great song, you know, Hollywood Swinging. There's nothing wrong with any of that shit. But that already sounds like they found their way. It's like right on the cusp of the shit being like, getting into like the stylized funk, which just slid right into the disco in the second half of the 70s, you know what I mean? It's like, this is it. This is the formula. We've got it. And that record fucking nails it. It's a great record. But you don't hear that finding their way like you do on the first Kool and the Gang record, or, I actually haven't played this one yet, I gotta confess. But the other sort of really early shit that I've heard by them. So I'm looking forward to hearing this one, because this is a very early one. This is Live at the Sex Machine. And apparently the tracks are exclusive. I could be wrong about that, so... yeah, I was thinking about shouting out to a couple other favorite records, but I'm going to keep this part short, because I'm trying to do a better job of keeping an eye on the time. I'm just going to shout out to two other ones real quick. First of all, this one. You know, when people ask me what's my favorite Funkadelic record, I always kind of want to say the first one, or even more, Free Your Mind and Your Ass Will Follow, because they just sound like so acid heavy. I mean, like they were fucking on so much acid, and like they're just so intensely psychedelic that it's kind of a hipper answer. But in the grand scheme of things, this is it, man. This is like a suite in 3 parts to me. It's like the first part is Maggot Brain, just that like that long guitar solo, which took me a while to get into, honestly, but I fucking love every minute of it now. Then just the awesome songs that make up the last part of side 1 and the first part of side 2. It's like You and Your Folks, Me and My Folks, Hit It and Quit It. Just great songs, man. And all this weird shit in the production, too. Like, I love the drum sound on this record. Like, every single song will usually have like some different weird effect on the drums that just gives it like this sort of fucking craziness. Yeah, I'll show the back, too. But I'm going to show the gatefold because I have it to show. And then the last part is Wars of Armageddon, which is just like this long, like crazy-ass jam with these sound effects, and fucking blew my mind the first time I heard it. Look at that fucking huge picture of the maggot, a little lecture on fear from the Process Church, and those fucking guys looking so badass. That's the Funkadelic I love right there, you see that? The costumes and shit, that was a great band, man. You're not going to hear me talking any shit about them. But this is the Funkadelic I love, man. This is, I swear to God, this is one of my favorite records ever. And, you know, I'll tell you, there's a lot said about James Brown being sort of the godfather of funk, and I'm not going to sit here and deny the obvious, okay? I mean, if you haven't heard that James Brown shit, you really shouldn't listen to any of this other stuff. But you know who doesn't quite get his due when people talk about this shit? Is this guy on these later records that the jazz crew hated when they came out, man. This is what I was playing this week. This is Dark Magus. These are this one, and there were 2 others, Agartha and Pangea, which were also doubles like this one. These are reissues. I wish they were originals. But these were the very last ones he did before his retirement. And you listen to these. I mean, yeah, you listen to On the Corner, and I love On the Corner. It's a great record. But that's almost more like finding his way towards a place where he's finding his way. And this is actually late compared to the other stuff, but this record is just so wild and psychedelic and heavy. I actually played this when my mom was visiting, and she thought that a lot of it sounded like just like a cat wailing. And I was like, that sounds like a great record to me. What's wrong with that, you know? Why would you not listen to that? So, yeah, those later, if I were going to recommend one of those Miles Davis records, it'd actually probably be Get Up With It, because that's one of the heaviest fucking things I've ever heard. No shit. I used to sneak when I'd make like, back in the tape days when you make like mixtapes for people, I would put, do like a, not so much a heavy metal mix, but if I were doing like a 70s hard rock thing, I would sneak in Rated X on there off that, and people go, who the fuck is that? That's Miles Davis, man. Fucking beating on the organ and shit. Fucking awesome record. But Dark Magus, man, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up, and it's right up there. It's one of the heaviest of the lot here. So thanks for indulging me, and I hope you found something that maybe you haven't heard before, and something that maybe you'll dig. Till next time, when I might be rambling about the same shit again, I probably warn you right up front, but we'll see how long it lasts. I love this shit so much, though, man. I don't mind.